Scratch this fan. Scratch. You got it moving.
We'll go ahead and start. We might have some come on in a little bit. We got our prayer list. Your study notes are on the back of the prayer list tonight. Actually, I got them in time for Dodie to do that. So, as you're looking over your prayer list, hope everybody had a good day today. It's good to see you all out. Still excited from Sunday. I think we had a really good day. I think everybody and several people have mentioned it, and so it was good. We had a full house.
Yeah.
Church, yeah.
Church, the singing, it was a full.
Yeah.
And out here
It was. I don't know what was our count. Did anybody?
I don't know, I counted and I don't remember. Chris counted too. I don't know if we had 65, 68. Did you count Sunday? The people?
I got 65 downstairs. I didn't know who was upstairs.
There was probably another. You got Michael and Luke, and I think there might have
There
been
was some people up there.
4 or 5 others. Yeah, 4 or 5 others up there. And,
No.
Oh.
yep, Tanner and Isaac. I think Isaac.
Yeah, Isaac was there.
Yeah.
I saw
Isaac
Isaac.
was downstairs.
Well, I didn't count him downstairs. Who was he sitting?
Shelley.
Right in front of him? I didn't. I didn't. Cause somebody. I think I didn't count him. I don't remember if I did.
I know we had several that they did stay for lunch too, so that it was good. And we had visitors. It's good, even those like family visitors that come in. It's always good to have them. So we have to double it for Father's Day. That's our next meal, Lana. I think it should be Father's. Yeah, that's where the steak. Well,
Surf and turf.
That's where Scott comes in and his our barbecue connection.
Scott's at Dippin' Dots now. He's not at the barbecue
What?
anymore. Yeah, he had to move on.
Oh,
He wasn't doing him quite right.
Right,
so.
yeah. Oh, Dippin' Dots.
Yeah.
Well, we know where it gets for Bible
started
school.
Monday.
We at Friendship, there was 2 or 3 people that worked at Dippin' Dots,
Yeah.
and the last night of Bible school, they brought in like a tub of Dippin' Dots for
We've done that before.
to eat. So very good. Well, I have a prayer request. Tomorrow night, I'm actually doing my first event since March of 2020. Yeah. So I'll be going to Lexington for the KBC's 2021 AMS Leadership Advance. The director of missions are now called associational missional strategists or missional strategists, I think. But they're not, they're DOMs, they're AMSs now. And they're having their annual, actually I think they start tonight. They're doing like Thursday and Friday morning. I think they have like a whole kind of weekend type deal. I was actually booked last year for it. Of course, it got canceled, and so he contacted me and asked if I could still come, and so I'll be heading out in the morning to go. I may or may not. My plan, I got a room and everything for the night, but I may come back home. I don't know yet, so I may or may not be here Friday at some point in time. So, but I was pretty excited about that. Sherry asked me, she said, "Do you remember how to paint?" I said, "I did Easter. I got it out." So, but I know a few of the local ones, DOMs, and they're going to be there. So, yep, I'll be traveling in the morning. So, anybody heard anything new on Earl's dad?
Marsha's across the street, but I just saw her walking across. I didn't talk to her.
You make any updates on any of our people on our
Corey and Hudson came by today to see our farmers. and
Oh, did you?
sit for a little while, and Hudson seemed to be feeling pretty good. He had treatments earlier in the week, but he was home. and
Able to come
was
home.
feeling pretty good, so.
Well, that's exciting.
And I believe Emily got a good report today she had an MRI of her spine, and everything was clear on her spine, so no spread of the cancer yet, so.
Miss Betty's across the road, and I got to talk to her for a few minutes, and they're still trying to sort through some things and kind of figure out why she's getting tired, and they think her might have infection in her leg
Knee, or the
Yeah,
knee
yeah,
surgery?
yeah.
from the knee surgery, but in her leg. So
The kids said it was really swollen Sunday, they said it was really
Yeah.
swollen.
It is today.
she's
She went to town.
she's a trooper. She's over there
They are.
cooking for the kids, and she loves those kids. So, Lana, anything on your on your
Yes.
on your desk?
We did get his MRI
Okay.
results. They did not find a stroke, but he does still have a large amount of small vessel disease. In fact, it covers almost his entire brain. And he has been diagnosed with mild dementia. They're just looking, they want to know now what the cause is so they know how to best treat it.
Okay.
They do know it's not a stroke though now. But he was certain it wasn't a stroke anyway.
He'd already decided that, huh?
He said he would know, but you can have a stroke and not know it.
Well, Tommy told me that Betty, he believed it, this is long back 2 months ago or so, he thought she had an infection in her leg, and that's what was eating up her platelets.
He was right too.
That's what Tommy told me.
All these good
I know, it's like my
dietitians
daughter.
around
Lord.
here.
And I just kind of went,
Okay, Tommy.
yeah.
How about Miss Martha?
She's doing okay there in the nursing home, and hoping she'll heal, but everything is, of course, she doesn't really know where she is or anything, but I think she's healing okay.
Okay.
Her girls got to see her Monday, so.
Remember I don't know if the Sunrise Children's Services, they're just, the state right now is not wanting to renew a contract that they've had for years and years and years. And the more I read, kind of the angrier I get, just for the fact of something stems out of a lawsuit from several years ago, but they've always had an addendum written into their contract to allow them to function and service kids and families. But the fact that they're a Christian organization, and then plus these contracts, this latest thing I read, the contracts that are being put out, they're allowing the American Civil Liberties Union, and there was another group, they're allowing them to actually review state contracts. And there is, both those organizations are as anti-Christian as you can get.
So Southern Poverty Law Center, is that the other one? That's another.
It
Kinda
may,
like
yeah,
ACLU,
I'd have to look.
Super leftist and hates Christians.
I looked at it and I was just like, why do they have any business looking at anything? And the whole thing is, in the Sunrise Children's Home, they's like, we know we're not for everybody, and we're about the kids, and we will find, we try to place and do what's best for the child, and it's just, our mile of pennies,
I sent my opinion to the governor when I first heard about it.
Yeah, I got a little email reply, animated email reply is what I got, but it's still, every time somebody calls, it's logged in
I
and
mean, I trained for Sunrise. I
Yeah.
trained foster parents, and everything. I mean, they are taught exactly what the state has expected them
Yeah.
to know. You know, they can't quote press their religion
Right.
on a child unless they ask something about it. They can't. I mean, and they're told exactly what they're expected to do to be a therapeutic foster parent certified by the state and by Sunrise.
and nobody's had a problem with it up until now.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, you know. It's so the last little thing I read, you know, Sunrise, I think their lawyer was confident that something would be resolved, and so we just continue to pray. If not, you know, maybe it's time churches to step in and you know, but through our budget, through our giving, you know, not
Support it.
and support it, yeah, because there's enough churches to do that, and so maybe that's what we're supposed to do. I know we.
But if the state is not going to use their services, what are they going to be able to do? I mean,
Well-
are they going to have any?
They have other things other than the adoption and the foster care. They offer.
I mean, they've got treatment.
They got treatment facilities.
Okay, I didn't know
Yeah, they
how
have
much other
boys and
stuff
girls
they-
homes. I mean, they have.
But again, if the state's not going to use them, it may run Sunrise. You know,
They may have to redefine what they do too. You know, to some degree. I don't know. But I just share the articles. Just you know for.
Well, I read the one you shared, and what I was understanding was that there was a sentence. It was a one sentence part of this contract or whatever that Sunrise, the government sentence, you know, and I'm thinking ACLU or the group that's wanting, I was just assuming, and maybe I shouldn't have, that they were trying to maybe promote all different kinds of people to have access to adopt these children.
Mhm.
And that Sunrise is adamantly against that because of our Christian beliefs. We would not want that. And I'm not sure, I don't understand what that exactly was that the sentence was. But I feel like the churches should support them and they shouldn't be associated with the
There's an
government.
ongoing lawsuit by a lady who was a lesbian who's suing the Sunrise, and I think she worked there or was working there. And from what that lawsuit's been going on forevermore.
Yes.
Yeah, that's been several years.
Yes,
And
I
so
remember that.
that's the administration's kind of they've kind of said, well, that you know that lawsuit there, that's kind of them not taking a stand either way. They can say, well, there's a pending lawsuit, and so that's why we haven't wrote that a addendum in the contract. That's kind of what I've gathered from reading, but
The truth is, they're just discriminating against religious people, and
that's kind of the
that's the end. That's what it is.
and that's
simple.
well, and officially, Sunrise does not discriminate based on sexual, preference or any of that stuff. And I mean, there's a lot of things that take somebody
That's what I'm thinking.
Well, they should.
They have to
If
qualify
they
to
are
be
standing with the Bible, they should.
officially.
They
Yeah.
have to.
They don't because legally they.
But, anytime you take government funds, you gotta go by the law.
and
So
I think
That's why churches should support Sunrise,
Absolutely.
Christian people should be the ones supporting it. If we don't want them to have to do those things, which we
Right.
don't.
And that's interesting that if they don't get the contract, what are their services going to be, or what's it going to look like? Is
Because
there,
when I was with DCBS, I helped transport a girl from Valor to one of their centers, but she was in state's custody. If the state's not going to use them, Sunrise.
Yeah, who's the state going to use for that service?
yeah, I don't know. So there's other ones out there, but
Kids on the street.
it's just the kids are the ones. I mean, it eventually comes back. They suffer.
Yeah.
That's what I
They
put.
suffer. The children do. So, well, that's we'll go ahead and pray, but just kind of keep them. They're not, they're not on our. We support them through the Mile of Pennies, but probably, depending on what the outcome's going to be, it
One
may.
other thing we do too, Brother Tim, is, if you go spend the night in the hospital, we send $25.
Oh, that's right.
And then, $25 if you pass away, so.
And so we may, like other churches, we may have to do more.
I was
Like do it
thinking
for
we had
birthdays.
that.
Yeah,
Anniversaries or something.
do budget some items so as well. But let's. I'm gonna add them. Chris, will you lead us in prayer and open us up tonight?
Father God, we thank you once again for the freedom and the blessing to come to your house to join together and just learn more about you, more about your word. God, I ask you just please be with each life and each situation represented on our prayer list. I especially want to lift up Sunrise. I know the importance and I know the impact that it has on children and families as a whole. Just be with us as a church. Help us to continue to grow strong. In your name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Well, we are going to continue on with the plagues. We finished with number 9 the last time we were together. So if you have your Bibles, if you would open them up to, we're going to be in Exodus chapter 11, I believe. I don't think 11. Double check my notes. I had the last couple of verses of 10 because we'll get to that because it's kind of an interesting point. If we recap, and here's a real quick recap. I didn't print out any extra the plague charts. I do have some extras in my office. If you didn't have one, your notes are on the back of the prayer sheet. But here's kind of a real quick recap through the. We won't spend a ton of time on it. But number 1 was the water into blood. We have the 3 god and goddesses. We kind of looked at them. The god of the dead and resurrection. Osiris granted all life, including vegetation and fertile flooding of the Nile. Kings of Egypt, they were associated with Osiris and death. And then we had the other one, the Egyptian water god and potter god of creation. He's given credit for creating the first children. Of course, the Israelite babies were thrown into the Nile. And then we have the fertility god and the Lord of the fish and the birds. Of course, the blood kills all the fish and stuff that's in the Nile. And so we looked at kind of that attack of the water into blood. Then we got the frogs. That plague came from the Nile. That was the first plague to involve the animal kingdom. The magicians reproduced this plague. That was one of the questions, is like if you have an overabundance of frogs, why produce more and add to the problem there? And then Pharaoh's response as he hardens his heart. We also then went to the gnats. Seb, the Egyptian god, he was the earth god. Pharaoh's magicians cannot duplicate this plague. His response was as he hardens his heart. Number 4, flying insects. The Egyptian god Kefra, associated with life and rebirth. This plague began the second series of plagues. That plague comes from the air. Pharaoh's response, he hardens his heart, which God said that he would. So Moses kind of knew that. Then the death of the livestock, and Apis was the Egyptian god. He was the sacred bull god of strength and fertility. He was actually a real bull, hand-picked and taken very, very good care of. All the domestic livestock were affected. This was the first plague that was directed at created things. There was a distinguish made between Israel was not affected. Pharaoh's response is he hardens his heart, which brought on the 6th, which was boils. That plague affected both people and animals. This time in number 6, we find that God hardens Pharaoh's heart. Then that brought on the 7th, hail, lightning, and thunder. This 7th begins the 3rd series of plagues. Seth is the god of winds and storms. Nut is the sky goddess. Pharaoh's response as he hardens his heart. And then we talked about hell being associated with God's judgment in the book of Revelation. And we looked at the hailstones and kind of did the little comparison there. That brought on number 8, locusts, which is an attack of the crop-related gods. Also, this was proof to Israel that Yahweh is God. We begin to see a shift in loyalty. Pharaoh's people, they're beginning to turn against him. 8 plagues into this thing, the plague. God hardens Pharaoh's heart, and then Pharaoh threatens Moses. That was at the end. If you want to look at chapter 10, but the verses 27 through 29, but the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart. He would not let them go. Then Pharaoh said to him, "Get away from me. Take care never to see my face again, for on the day you see my face, you shall die." And Moses says, "As you say, I will not see your face again." So Pharaoh's like, "I've had it. That's enough. If you ever come back in here again, I'll kill you." So I want to look at, though, real fast, if you would. I got 1, 2, 3. I got four Bible passages I'd like for you all to look up and have different people look up. I know there's 6 folks, so if 4 of you all. The first one is Psalm 78. 44 through 51. Who wants that one? Just throw your hand up. Miss Charlotte's going to take that one. Psalm 78, 44 through 51. Psalm 105, 28 through 36. Who wants that one? Psalm 105, 28. Lana's got that one. The next is Psalm 135, 8. Chris has got that. And then the last one is Psalm 136:10.
I got it.
Jeff's got that one. Whenever Psalm 78 it's a maskil, M-A-S-K-I-L. You know, at the beginning of the psalm, it'll write like a little b thing, and this is a maskil. I don't know if that's proper pronunciation, but there's an uncertainty of the term that most suggest it is a literary or musical term. Most likely it relates to the purpose of specific psalms or how they were performed or recited. And Psalm 78 was written by Asaph, and he was a great singer and musician of David and Solomon's era. 105, 135, and 136, those were written by David. I kind of did a little search. This isn't like an official search, so don't like quote me on it or anything. It's kind of like a glance over. There's probably over 100 mentions in the Old Testament about the deliverance from Egypt, the Red Sea, or the plagues. Here's just a few mentioned before we read them. Judges 2:1, Judges 2:12, Judges 6:8, 1 Sam 8:8, 1 Sam 10:18, 1 Sam 12:16, 1 Kings 8:16, 8:21, 2 Kings 17:7, and 2 Kings 17:36. Those are just a few, but I think I searched what was the plagues of Egypt in the Old Testament verses or something like that, and I know at least like over 80 popped up in this one little article, and I know there's probably more than that, so I kind of said probably over 100. That's, I mean, you think about that, and the years that had gone by, and they were still talking about that. And when you look at it, you know, when we looked at, you know, it was so Israel will know. You know, in a lot of ways they didn't get it because right after they got out of Egypt, they made the golden calf. But those people that wrote about it, it was always remember how God brought you out of Egypt. Every time like Israel sinned and they rolled back into that, they repented of that. You know, one of the reminders was, remember when you were slaves in Egypt and how God delivered you. And so I just thought that was, I always find that, especially as I'm reading through, you know, the daily reading, and we're studying Exodus, and it just keeps popping up. So, Miss Charlotte, if you would share with us Psalm 78, 44 through 51.
And he turned the rivers into blood, and their floods that they could not drink. But he sent divers sorts of flies among them, which devoured them, and frogs, which destroyed them. He gave also their increase unto the caterpillar, and their labor unto the locust. He destroyed their vines with hail, and their sycamore trees with frost. He gave up their cattle also to the hail, and their flocks to hot thunderbolts. And he cast upon them the fierceness of his anger, wrath, and indignation, and trouble, by sending evil angels among them. He made a way to his anger. He spared not their soul from death, but gave their life over to the pestilence, and smote all the firstborn in Egypt, the chief of their strength in the tabernacles of Ham.
I mean, that's kind of that's like a recap of a little summary of all the plagues. All right, Lana, go ahead and read yours.
He sent darkness and made the land dark, for had they not rebelled against his words? He turned their waters into blood, causing their fish to die. Their land teemed with frogs, which went up to the bedrooms of their rulers. He spoke, and there came swarms of flies and gnats throughout their country. He turned their rain into hail with lightning throughout their land. He struck down their vines and fig trees and shattered the trees of their country. He spoke, and the locusts came, grasshoppers without number. They ate up every green thing in their land, ate up the produce of their soil. Then he struck down all the firstborn in their land, the first fruits of all their manhood. He is God. It's like, wow.
Yes. Oh, that's right. All right, Chris.
He smote the firstborn of Egypt, both man and beast.
And then Jeff.
Let's see. To him was struck down the firstborn of Egypt. His love endures forever.
So we're at number 10. We're almost there. Chapter 11, starting, it says, the Lord said to Moses, yet one more plague more I will bring upon Pharaoh and upon Egypt. Afterward, he will let you go from here. Can you imagine Moses, what
What are you going to do?
it's like, but here's the thing: afterward, he will let you go from here, and when he lets you go, he will drive you away completely. He says, speak now in the hearing of the people that they ask every man of his neighbor and every woman of her neighbor for silver and gold jewelry. I still think that's the most crazy, amazing thing. We're slaves. And we're going to go ask you, the people that have oppressed us, we're going to ask them for silver and gold jewelry. And they're just going to hand it over. We're going to loot them.
Anything to get rid of them.
I know it. That's like, here you go. And the Lord gave people favor in the sight of the Egyptians. Moreover, the man Moses was very great in the land of Egypt, in the sight of Pharaoh's servants, and in the sight of the people. So Moses said, thus saith the Lord, about midnight I will go out into the midst of Egypt, and every firstborn in the land of Egypt shall die, from the firstborn of Pharaoh who sits on his throne, even to the firstborn of the slave girl who is behind the handmill, and all the firstborn of the cattle. There shall be a great cry throughout all the land of Egypt, such as there has never been, nor ever will be again. But not a dog shall growl against any of the people of Israel, either man or beast, that you may know that the Lord makes distinction between Egypt and Israel. And all your servants shall come down to me and bow down to me, saying, get out, you and all the people who follow you. And after that I will go out. And he went out from Pharaoh in hot anger. Then the Lord said to Moses, Pharaoh will not listen to you, that my wonders may be multiplied in the land of Egypt. And Moses and Aaron did all these wonders before Pharaoh, and the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he did not let the people of Israel go out of his land. So I want to stop there, and we'll look at number 10. It's kind of broken up because chapter 12 goes into the Passover, and so we're going to kind of skip that because we're going to get that next. So I don't want to get into that. So 11 goes from the chapter 11, and then it picks up on chapter 12, verses 29. Yes. 10th plague, death of the firstborn. At midnight the Lord struck down all the firstborn in the land of Egypt. From the firstborn of Pharaoh who sat on his throne, to the firstborn of the captive who was in the dungeon, and all the firstborn of the livestock. And Pharaoh rose up in the night, he and all his servants and all the Egyptians, and there was a great cry in Egypt, for there was not a house where someone was not dead.
Wonder how many Israelites had the same thing happen. Those that kind of leaned toward the Egyptians.
Yeah, didn't take the blood. I don't know. I'm sure.
There was some of them that were stubborn.
There was distinction made, but it's a good thought. We don't really have any. We know like some of the Egyptians left, with them when they left out.
But you gotta think that after everything, all those plagues and everything that had happened, most of the Israelites surely would have taken that safeguard to put that blood on the
I know.
doorpost.
If anything at all, it's like, yeah,
They'd
just
be safe than sorry,
yeah.
even if they didn't really.
or like you're going in the house and we're putting it, you're staying in. Pharaoh rose up in the night, he and all his servants and all the Egyptians. There was a great cry in Egypt, for there was not a house where someone was not dead. And then he summoned Moses and Aaron by night. Okay, remember, he said, next time I see your face, it's going to be the day that you will die. You'll not see me again. Don't come back. He calls for him. He asks for him. Summoned by night, said, up, go out from among my people, both you and the people of Israel. Go, serve the Lord as you have said. Take your flocks and your herds as you have said, and be gone, and bless me also. So, there it is. So, when we look at the Egyptian god or goddesses defeated, this is pretty much an attack on all of them. Pharaoh was also considered a god. Chapter 11, verse 12. What? That doesn't make sense because there's not a 12 verse. My text is wrong there. I'm sorry. It said, I will punish all the gods of Egypt. I am the Lord.
It's 12:12.
12:12. Thank you. My notes, Michael, were...
What's in your YouVersion notes?
Okay. That's good. I'm glad that one's right because my paper notes, yeah. Yep, all the God, 12:12, I'm sorry. That's right in your notes. For I will pass through the land of Egypt that night. I will strike all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast. On all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgment. I am the Lord. So that's in the middle of the instructions of the Passover. So Pharaoh is considered a son of the sun god Ra in Egyptian religion. And there is a connection of the darkness plague and the death of the firstborn. Ra, the sun god, is defeated in plague number 9. Now his supposed son, Pharaoh, was shown to be ineffective. And Yahweh demonstrated by killing the firstborn that he, unlike Ra's son, God Pharaoh, is the true God and has true power over life and death. This plague would let all the Egyptians and generations to come know that there is only one God, and that God is Yahweh. Any thoughts, questions, anything from right there?
So when it says firstborn, would that be like it's like, Dad's household. I don't live with them anymore. But I'm still firstborn, and then my own son is
Yep.
firstborn.
Yep.
You would be firstborn.
Marshall would be firstborn.
Marshall.
Household, though.
Yeah.
Yep.
Of every household, so it would be, I don't think, would it go back? I mean, it would be firstborn of the household that you have, you're living in, right?
That's
Well,
what I
that
don't
wouldn't
know.
that still make Jeff in his household, Michael in his household, Scott
Got
in
in
his
his
household,
household.
me and
And Marshall.
And Marshall.
No,
No,
Chris
Chris
is
is
his
his
son.
And in Chris's household,
Mm-hmm.
in Chris's household, that would be,
Ethan.
Ethan. and in my household, it would be Tori.
No.
It's supposed to be the firstborn male.
Is it son or just firstborn?
This is firstborn.
This is firstborn.
firstborn. Wow. Why did he start?
Said he would kill the oldest son and
Sarah did.
firstborn.
The oldest son, what verse is that?
For I will pass through the land of Egypt and kill all of the oldest son
Every firstborn
and first
son in Egypt will
male
die.
animals.
For I'll pass through the land of Egypt that night. I'll strike all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast,
What verse?
and on all the gods of Egypt I'll execute judgment. I am the Lord.
May depend on the
Mine just
translation,
says all
whether
the
it says son or.
firstborn in the land of Egypt.
Yeah, mine's got firstborn.
Well, this one's got oldest, kill all the oldest sons and firstborn male animals in all the land of Egypt.
Mine says, for I will pass through the land of Egypt this night and will smite all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast, and against all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgment. I am the Lord.
So there's a couple of thoughts. You could think, well, since Pharaoh killed the male children, it would be male. But he also said that death would be in every house. And not everybody had a male child. I wouldn't think. I mean, that could be. I've always
Every
thought
household.
firstborn was firstborn.
That's what I think it is, it doesn't matter, cause the livestock could be female or male too. I don't know, that,
I will,
It just depends on who's interpreting that scripture. When
Either
it
way, it's a
says
lot of
man-
people.
Where it says man and beast.
A whole lot of
where it-
people.
Well, 11:5 in my, says every firstborn son in Egypt will die. From the firstborn son of Pharaoh who sits on the throne.
yeah,
To the firstborn son of the slave girl who's at the handmill.
yeah. See, I just have firstborn, and I'll look that up though.
people and animals. I don't even say man, it says people.
This one here sure does say that, kill the oldest son and
What version
firstborn
are you
male
reading
animal.
from?
It's that,
The Living Bible. Yeah, mine's just King James.
Living its transliteration, translation.
this is.
What are you reading from, Jeff?
NIV.
That's what mine is. Mine says people, it doesn't even
Says
say.
King
people.
James just says firstborn. In both of them.
I'll do a little digging. That's a good question. I've always, I thought with the broad scope of somebody in every household died, it's kind of, you'd have to assume that everybody had a male and a boy.
Just be me.
And they may,
The Holman Bible says firstborn male, but all the other translations that I've got on here anyway, I'll just say firstborn.
firstborn.
New American Standard just says firstborn.
I'll go back and look at the Hebrew word there. Look at So in verse 1,
The whole country.
God actually announces this plague. He doesn't tell Moses to go out. He doesn't tell Aaron to go out. He says, yet one more plague I will bring upon Pharaoh and upon Egypt. So he announces it. So God tells Moses the outcome of the plague. He said, he'll let you go from here. And when he does, he's going to drive you out completely. The next couple of verses, that's the spoils of war and back pay. Okay? Plunder the enemy In ancient times, one of the benefits of winning a war was the spoils of war. And the winning army took everything of value and added it to their treasury. It was compensation for the work they had done as slaves and never received any wages for. And it was also financial provisions to survive as a nation on the move until they arrived and settled into Canaan. You think about the gifts that were brought to Jesus: gold, frankincense, and myrrh. You know, there was foreshadowing. There was a little bit of prophetic giving in those gifts, but there's also a practical, monetary, use for that. We don't really know. Joseph's not mentioned. Most likely Joseph is out of the picture. He's passed away. And so how can Mary, support and everything? Well, they had gifts when he was a baby. And so...
Probably how they had to pay when they had to flee to Egypt.
Yeah. So here to travel, of course, we know that they used a portion of that to make a calf. They wasted some of that to make a calf.
Yeah, we just threw the earring in the fire and a cow came
That's
out.
right, a cow came out. I know how'd that happen. Yeah, that's going to be good when we get to that. So 11:4 and 12:29, it mentions midnight, at midnight. Now that's not necessarily our midnight of 12 a.m. In ancient worlds, midnight was the deepest darkness time of night. The point of the night that most people were likely to be asleep and at their greatest vulnerability. Israelites' day began at dusk by reason of the creation order in Genesis. And a Jewish calendar does not begin at midnight, but at either sunset or when 3 medium-sized stars would be visible, depending on the religious circumstances. Sunset marks the start of the 12 night hours, whereas sunrise marks the start of 12 day hours. This means that night hours may be longer or shorter than day hours, depending upon the season. Very confusing. Other ancient days began at dawn or dusk. With no electricity, got up early, worked until dark, came home, ate, and went to bed. No TV or staying up because of the long day's work. Possibly grandparents or great-grandparents, ancestors that grew up before TV, major electricity, went to bed early and got up early. I know in Haiti, when it gets dark, it's dark. You don't do anything, because you can't see, you can't get out. I mean, there's just like, there's none of that. I mean, you put your little headlight on your head and you can read a book maybe. If the power goes out, it's just dark. And so, if it gets dark at 6:30, 7 o'clock, it's a long night until the sun comes back up again. So it may not necessarily, I guess the whole point of that is, it may not be like midnight, our midnight. Here is in verse 11:5, and we got the firstborn farm animals, but really the emphasis on the firstborn. Well, I tell you what, we'll back up here. This might answer our question a little bit too. The importance of the firstborn. The firstborn received the birthright. And it wasn't a girl. It was the boys that got it. I don't think, the girls didn't. I can't think of any examples off the top of my head. The firstborn received the birthright, the double portion of the inheritance. It represented special qualities of life. As for the king, the firstborn son of the king was in line for the throne. The death of the firstborn son would cripple a family legally as well as emotionally. A major portion of a family estate would go to the firstborn. That's speaking in reference to the male.
And it does specifically say Pharaoh's firstborn who sits on his throne, implying that it's a boy or a male child.
But also firstborn would have caught him if he's, if he was a boy.
Well, it actually fits good because I'm trying to remember some history that I saw recently, but if I'm remembering right, the Pharaoh that, archaeologists think this was not the firstborn from his father. He was on down the line because his older brother would have been killed for some reason.
And he lived.
And he lived, so.
But his son died.
Yeah.
Thoughts, now that I've unearthed that little.
Well, that's one bright women got in the Bible.
Yes. Says there will be death among the Egyptians unlike never before. The firstborn of everyone from the Pharaoh to the lowest slave girl will be killed, as well as the firstborn of the cattle. There is retribution of Pharaoh killing the male Hebrew boys in Exodus 1. Pharaoh was not killing Israel's children, but he was killing God's children, ultimately.
And just I wonder if the Apis bull was a firstborn.
Well, since you brought that in, it's a good segue for me. So why the firstborn animals? The Hebrew word used is behemah, B-E-H-E-M-A-H. It means be mute, large quadrupled animal, or cattle. So it's cattle, and the question is, what is the relationship between cows and Egypt? Go back to Plague 5, the livestock disease, the Apis bull, the sacredness of cows, Apis worship, and the golden calf. So all that connection there. So I'd say that's, if you're going to attack all gods, that Apis bull's probably, he's one of the first to go. If you think about it, if it's an attack on the gods. So
after the plague of livestock earlier, there may not have been a whole lot even left.
There may not have been. It was a devastation. Even the crops and everything. Hail, locusts, just the devastation there. Verse 5 said, "No Egyptian household will go unaffected by death." The son of the king who sits on the throne to the slave girl grinding grain. Firstborn of king who sat on the throne to the firstborn of the prisoner in jail. Someone had died in every house. 12:30, my notes here. And Pharaoh rose up in the night, he and all his servants and all the Egyptians, and there was a great cry in Egypt, for there was not a house where someone was not dead. God distinguished between Israel and Egypt. 11:7, he said that there would be, he said, not even a dog will bark. The Hebrew translates, but among the Israelites, not a dog will stick its tongue at any man or animal. It's a way of saying that the Israelites will not experience any of the wrath of the 10th plague. And in Bible times, the dog was the least of the animals in terms of desirability or importance because it was dirty. It was an unwelcome scavenger animal. Its reputation then would be that of a rat now. So,
Yes, before there was man's best friend.
Yeah. Well, my visits to Africa and my visits to Haiti, they're not best man's friend there either. They're nasty looking dingo. They all look the same. They throw rocks at them. They try to run them off. They're scavengers. They're like little parasite worm farms, and they're all little rib cages. They're really nasty looking. So
people aren't comfortable enough to bother with taking care of pets.
No. And it's just, if they came here and, saw a dog wearing a sweater, it'd be like, what's wrong with you people? But anytime you see a dog even referenced in the New Testament, it's not a good thing. they're not if you know, to be called a dog in the New Testament, it was quite the insult. You know, it's like, oh, I'm a labradoodle. No, you're a scavenger. You are. You're a parasite infested scavenger. So
I figure Egypt, jackals would be about the only canine I can think of in Egypt, and they were, you know, scavengers. Who ate dead.
the one God had the jackal head. You know, you'd see that on there. Cats. Now that was a different story in Egypt. Cats were worshipped. They even had them mummified, put in a tomb with them. So Pharaoh's response during the night. Pharaoh summoned Moses and Aaron and told them to take everything and leave. You know, earlier he promised to kill them if he ever saw them again. After they left, we will find in chapter 14, after they left, he hardened his heart and pursued after them. But they would never be bothered by Pharaoh or Egypt again. Next, we get the details of the preparation of the Exodus and the first Passover. There's only one Passover. There's only one. And that's the one in Exodus. Everything after that is a commemoration of the Passover. It's a celebration of the Passover. There's one Passover. And I'm excited to kind of look at that. The night of the 10th plague was the beginning of the Passover celebration and the Feast of the Unleavened Bread. The Israelites were given specific instructions on how to prepare for that night and what to do when they would finally get to leave Egypt. Chapter 12 deals with the Passover. Chapter 13 with the consecration of the firstborn. And chapter 14 is the crossing of the Red Sea and the destruction of the Egyptian army. And we will look at them in more detail over the next few weeks. So do we have anything? I will find out for sure on that translation. I apologize. As far as firstborn, I'm kind of bouncing back and forth now, but I'll check some recent. And somebody may be watching online too, and they may set me, give us some insight. But I'd be curious why some. I'll have to look at the word firstborn. Actually, I'm curious to why some translations put the male in and some take it out. Sometimes they put the male in because there's the assumption in translating that it's the male, and then newer document, they get newer verses, they get newer, and they'll go back and they'll fix it, and so.
Well, in chapter 13, the consecration of the firstborn. It says, the Lord says to Moses, consecrate to me every firstborn male. Is it only the males? If you had a daughter, she was just.
Yeah.
She's like,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
In this case, in Egypt, that was the right.
Okay. No, it's male in one place.
The firstborn, is after everything was established, is always the male. The birthright, the inheritance, that's the prodigal son, the older son,
There were exemptions though. Was it Moses, or I guess it was Joshua when they were first
there was the family.
entering the land.
There was
one
they
family
didn't.
that only had daughters.
They only had daughters, and he took care of them. He
Yeah.
did make provisions for them. Yep. I'm gonna go ahead and.
That was not.
The normal thing